in. Good afternoon and welcome to the People Community's last event of 2021. I'm Kara Toronto, the Chief Operating Officer at TAO. If I have not had the pleasure of meeting you either in person or online, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm thrilled to have you all here with us today. Riley O'Brien, TAO's VP of Events and Experiences, is with me today providing back-end Zoom support. So if you have any questions or comments during today's event, please feel free to post them in the public chat or send to Riley directly. I'm pretty sure she's there under TAO admin. So a few quick Zoom reminders before we start, as if we need Zoom reminders at this point in the year. All participants have been muted. Please remain on mute unless a TAO staff member unmutes you and calls on you to talk. We do welcome you to join us on camera today so that our speaker can connect with a live audience. And I'm sure you are all aware we keep you on mute so that we do not hear your dogs, as you will likely hear mine if I do not go on mute at the end of this welcome. So I encourage you to engage with TAO on social media. We love to see key takeaways that participants post about our events, and it helps others learn more about our community. We're currently hiring a marketing manager, so stay tuned for that announcement in 2022, but I have a feeling we're going to get some great gems from Jennifer today. One additional item to note, if you did not see when you logged in, we are recording today's session and we'll upload it to our YouTube channel, so please feel free to share that recording with other folks in your networks that you think could benefit from this content. So I would like to take a really quick moment to thank and recognize our 2021 chairs, Drew Bradbury, Shauna Shandy, and Crystal Zinkoff, for their leadership in getting this group relaunched. We have great traction going into 2022, and we are truly hoping to have some of those meetings next year in person. Drew and Crystal are going to step down from their leadership roles. So if anyone is interested, we had an open call for chairs, so stay tuned for that. And Shauna's going to stay on and lead this community moving forward. So with that, I'm going to introduce this afternoon's presenter, Jennifer Blankl. Jennifer helps busy professionals ignite meaningful connection, understanding, appreciation, and respect in their key relationships so they can experience more joyful bonds, master conflict resolution, create more win-win solutions, and have more fun. Trained and certified as a relationship and marriage coach, life coach, and strategic interventionist, there's a word I never thought I would say, Jennifer works privately with individuals, couples, and teams, and conducts workshops, talks, and training for professional teams, groups, and organizations. And she is seen live on Coin News every other Wednesday morning answering viewers' relationship questions. So I can say from personal experience, when I first talked to Jennifer, I was on with a coworker, and we actually discussed our relationship, and Jennifer was laughing about how we had navigated through our conflict, and we felt so good as a working pair that we've been trying to get this presentation here to the TAO community all year because it was so impactful to us. So we're really delighted to finish 2021 with this. I know I've learned a ton from my conversations with you, Jennifer. I know others will too. So with that, I'm done, and I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer to take on our presentation for the day.
Thanks, Kara. Thank you so much for having me. I am equally, if not more, excited to be here. I feel like I've been waiting, a year and a half to do this talk because we got botched by COVID. So I'm honored and thrilled to be here with you all. I want to thank you for letting me talk to you. I just want to thank you, from the gate out, thanks for your trust. Thanks for giving me your attention today. And thank you, Kara. I'm not sure if Justin's still part of the organization, but thank you to Justin as well. Got to meet him a long time ago. So thank you. I'm honored to be here. So I'm going to take a quick second and just share my screen. And if you'll let me know if you can see it.
You're good.
Awesome. Okay, the only thing is, I can't see my note. Oh, there they are. Okay, perfect. Okay, goody. All right, I'm good. Okay, thank you for the introduction, Kara. Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you guys today about this. I've been doing this talk for years. I completely updated it and revamped it for you all, I want you to know. And I'm glad that I get to do it during this time. I don't have to say the obvious. It's been a tough couple years. We're heading into the holidays. There's layers and layers of stress and reasons for us to be a little bit on edge or have reasons to have conflict, whether that's even inside of ourselves or external conflict with other people. If you're feeling it, you're certainly not alone. So I'm happy to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about today: conflict. So I want to start here. I love Brene Brown. She's a world-renowned researcher on concepts like courage, vulnerability, empathy, shame. Her message is vulnerability is one of the most courageous things we can engage in. A lot of people like to think that vulnerability equals weakness. But if you think about it and break it down, our most courageous self is required to speak our truth, to open up in a vulnerable way, which might feel risky. But I want to challenge you in a loving, respectful way today to be vulnerable yourselves and to take the risk of being open and sharing and putting things in the chat box or asking questions throughout. I'm not shy when I talk. Don't feel like you're interrupting me. You can totally raise your hand and ask a question if something pops up, or you can wait till the end, whichever. I'm good. So I do encourage you though to open up. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but if I can push you a little bit today, share, because it's my intention that you feel the power of what comes from sharing and opening up. You all are in a wonderful organization and you get to spend a lot of time together. And I hope that today you get to learn a little piece of something awesome about each other through learning about what I have to say here as well. All right. So with that, let's just start strong. If you feel comfortable, please put in the chat box some specific details about a conflict that you're involved in right now. This can be a tiny conflict. This can be a huge, groundbreaking conflict. This can be a conflict that maybe is inside of yourself that you're not talking about to anybody. This can be a conflict that you're definitely outwardly having with somebody. But if you're comfortable, maybe share that in the chat box. And I want to start also with a powerful piece of data, which I'm very obsessed with. So there's a huge 100-year pool of data that comes out of a 100-year-long study from Harvard that studied the same group of people over a 100-year time period about what leads to happiness and deep fulfillment in people. And at the end of the day, everything pointed towards relationships. When people were, not to be morbid, but when people were on their deathbed, it wasn't about income that wasn't made or materials that they couldn't acquire. It all came down to who they didn't get enough time with, who they didn't get to resolve things with. It was people, it was relationships. And along with all that data, which is wild to look at, this is what they claim. 90% of our long-term happiness and fulfillment comes from inside of us, which leaves only 10%, which is very, very minimal, to what happens to us externally, to the things that happen to us that we cannot control. Science says that it's only 10% of our reality around happiness and fulfillment. And so why am I bringing this up? This data can be applied to lots of different topics. I find in the work that I do, how we perceive conflict, how we perceive things that we don't align on, how we perceive the fact that we humanly disagree all day long with a lot of people, how we define that and internalize that really dictates how we're going to navigate our disagreements and our conflicts, and also the outcome that we're going to get. So let's start with the fact that we have a lot of power inside of ourselves to create the reality around what's happening around us or inside of us. So I want to share, I'm a data girl. I'm obsessed with data. I love to prove things. So now I want to talk to you about 3 data points on conflict itself. Okay. So the first truth is research shows most people choose avoidance as their conflict strategy over all the other conflict styles. The far majority of people believe that conflict is a negative experience, something involving risk and upset. So we get comfortable with avoiding so we don't rock the boat. And sure, conflict keeps us comfortable and we can avoid, maybe fights and maybe some adrenaline rushes that way. But at what costs when you peel back the layers? What do we lose and when we avoid conflict altogether? Well, I'll state the obvious as a loving reminder. We miss out on the deeper, more meaningful levels of our relationship by keeping it surface level and safe. We don't get the information that we need about our own and the other person's needs, their values, their feelings, their wants, their desires. And when we don't get that information, needs remain unmet. We don't get to help the other person meet their needs. We don't get to tap into our own needs as a reflection of the other person's needs. So when we suppress unresolved issues, we create holes in our relationships. We create holes in ourselves. And so it's human, and it's easy to think that the trade-out of avoiding conflict is peace and happiness, but it's a kind of happiness that doesn't have the depth and the meaningfulness that comes with the hardships of conflict and getting to those deeper layers of your relationships. Also, when we avoid conflict, as we all know, and I'm sure we've all humanly experienced this over and over in our lives, disconnection. We can save face and keep the boat peaceful on the water, but are we really connecting deeply? Are we really getting to the good meat of our relationship? And then, of course, the ultimate, pain comes in the form of destruction of a relationship. Maybe it's still there, but it's so surface level, you're barely having a relationship. So that's truth 1. So because of truth 1, truth 2 is definitely truthful, which is less conflict does not equal a healthier, happier relationship. It's amazing. I deal with all forms of relationships. I deal with work relationships, I deal with family relationships, and I deal with love and marriage relationships. It is amazing, especially in the love relationship arena, how many people come to me and say, oh, we don't need any help. We never fight, and I'm respectful about that feedback, of course, but less fighting does not equal a happier relationship. Especially, and I must say, because it's ethical to do so, especially if we're talking about love relationships, this fact is definitely pointing to romantic relationships. And then truth 3 is the number one reason we get into conflict and cannot resolve it is not because you're a jerk or they're a jerk, or you're not supposed to be in that relationship with that person, or it's impossible to resolve the conflict. It's because we're not understanding what each person's needs are. We're not understanding what's underneath the fight. We're not understanding that there's needs that are not getting met, and thus that is provoking the conflict itself. So, again, just to repeat it, when we break it down, we fight because we're not understanding each other's needs. And when we fight and we're acting horrifically, even in our worst times, when we're not being graceful about it, we're still acting horrifically and dysfunctional because we're not able to get our needs met in that moment. We're probably not even aware of them, but even if we are, it's human to not know how to constructively meet your needs every second of the day. Okay. So the gift in conflict, when we engage in conflict that is productive and we give ourselves and other people permission to express our truth, our needs, our values, so we can get together, create a resolution, we get a lot of gifts, so we find out so much more about what we want, and we certainly find out what we don't want. We find out what we're making up. We find out the stories and the narratives running through our heads that just simply are not true. You know, we discover more about how we feel, about how we truly feel, and we certainly get clearer on what we want to create together. So again, conflict gets us to the depths of stuff. Okay. So I want to tell you a story about some previous clients of mine that relate to a fight that had been going on for over a year that was recurring and in this vicious circle going nowhere because of the fact that they didn't understand each other's needs. So I work with a lot of really busy business owners, high-level business people who are, you know, hustlers, very hardworking workhorser people. Okay, that's just who I draw in. And so this particular couple both own their own businesses. And she was on him constantly about how much time he was spending at work. And it was a circular fight because she was asking for things, wanting more time with him. He was feeling criticized, like she was making a bunch of assumptions what he was doing. And it was leading to a lot of defensiveness on both their sides. So when I taught them about what I'm about to teach you, which is the 6 universal human needs, and I help them see what each of their needs blueprint is, what they value most as far as their needs go, then they could form language around it. Then they could talk about their conflict through the lens, through the languaging of our human needs. And this is what we discovered. So she has a top need for significance, and her second need is for love and connection. And this is going to make more sense later. And his top need is for growth and significance. So how they go about meeting those needs is different. But because she wanted time with him, because she needed that love and connection met first because of her blueprint, and he wasn't really landing the mark because it was his second year running his business. He's totally glued to his desk. So he's left feeling rejection, like a failure, like he's losing with his woman. So he goes into defensive mode with her every time she comes to him and is upset that they're not spending time together. So then we shed light on his needs and what needs to happen for him to feel like growth, his top need, and significance are being met. And even though they didn't line up, because they rarely do, being able to see how each is meeting their top needs in a different way led to an ability to talk about ways they could create a middle ground so that everybody's needs were getting met at a higher level together that nurtured their relationship. And in that instance, the argument became so much less personal because now it wasn't she's attacking him for being at work. I mean, that was a big cry out to connect with him, to be with him. She missed spending time with him. And now she can see that he's not at work because he's making work a number one priority. He has to do this and this and this to be able to let go of responsibility and transition into connection mode where he can be a good partner to her. So there's a lot to that. I hope that story makes sense and helps, but that's an example of how not understanding what our needs are, not being able to talk about them can keep us in communication loops. Okay, so what am I even talking about here? So I have lots of proven tools and strategies that I only apply as they best fit to my clients. However, this is one that I universally use with every single client as a starting point because this changed my own life. This saved my own marriage 8 years ago. Long story short, I married back in 2008, right after the stock market crashed. And my husband's job is related to the stock market. So he completely lost his entire sense of self. And we had just gotten married, and I had just no idea what his needs blueprint was. And so I wasn't understanding what he was going through. And when my fantasy bubble of being a newlywed got burst by his job loss, I reacted poorly because I didn't understand what he was going through. And so at the same time, miraculously, I was being trained as a coach by Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins directly helped me understand for my own life the power and purpose of these needs. And it transformed myself, my marriage, and my world. And so this is the one tool that I apply to every single person, no matter who you are. And so what I'm talking about is science says we've got 6 universal human needs that we've got to meet, no matter who we are. It's because we all have the same neurological system as human beings. So we've got to meet all these needs, but what makes us each very unique, awesomely so, is that we each value 2 needs over the other 4. And whatever those top 2 needs are, that's driving your boat all day long. That's driving your thoughts, that's driving your feelings, your beliefs, your actions, how you talk, how you walk, everything. And so we also humanly have constructive, awesome ways to meet these needs. And we have destructive, crappy ways to meet these needs that hijack us. It's the human way. So I want you to soak those 2 facts in. And then I'm going to teach you about these needs, acknowledging the fact that this deserves a lot more explanation, but I'm going to give you a way to further dive into this after this, okay? So I just took this at Disneyland recently. I love the angry eye. So all human behavior stems from our attempt to meet needs, okay? When we're happy, that's because we're usually meeting our needs at a high level. When we're sad, upset, frustrated, angry, something's not getting met. And so even when we're highly dysfunctional, even when we're acting horrifically, even when other people that we care about and love are acting horrifically, it's because needs are not getting met. And so I think it's empowering to remember, well, to know firsthand, but then to remember after we know that we've all got that higher intention brewing inside of us in everything that we're doing. We're trying to meet our needs. And I find that that truth can help us be more loving with ourselves and more loving with the world, because we're all human at the end of the day. And this truth can help us not take ourselves or other people so personally. Okay, so I'm going to teach you these needs. They're not in any particular order. So the first one is love and connection. This is our human need to feel togetherness, unity, warmth, compassion, all that. This is, any kind of bond with other human beings. This is also our need to connect with ourselves and to love ourselves. So we can meet this in high level ways, spending quality time, being present with people that we care about. We can meet it in negative ways. We can be stuck in a codependent, toxic relationship. We can argue solely to win. All right, so that's love and connection. Then there's our human need for certainty. This is our need to feel secure, comfortable, stable. Like we know we're going to be able to feed our family tonight, that we're going to be able to, not be attacked by our neighbor in an extreme example. Certainty is a pretty raw need right now. Certainty got escalated for a lot of human beings during COVID. So, I'll give you an example. Certainty can be met by taking positive risks that help you grow. Starting a business, getting further educated to find, to get better at your craft. Or it can be staying stuck in that dead-end job because you're getting the paycheck. Both ways you get that need for certainty met. One is going to lead you to a different type of life versus the other. One of my clients, I'm working with her over her worry. She says she worries so she can prepare for the worst, so she can never be disappointed. That was the very first thing she said to me when we met. That's changed now, but it's an example of, I'm kind of staying stuck on this a little bit because I do feel like certainty is a bigger deal in the human species right now than it ever has been, maybe at least in our lifetime. So anyway, another example is I have a client right now, a real estate agent, and we were talking recently, and she was telling me the story about how she doesn't like cold calling. And so I asked her a bunch of questions and we broke it down. And she expressed that she didn't like cold calling because she felt that she's interrupting people. She feels like as soon as she picks up the phone and calls, if they answer, she's interrupting them. And so that belief is a form of certainty, but it was limiting her ability to take risks that would help her in her sales. So she had a belief that was keeping her feeling certain about being comfortable in her phone calls, but the belief was limiting her. It was hijacking her growth in her role. So that's an example of how a belief, how a thought process can meet a human need. And then to make it fun, there's the flip side of certainty, which is our opposite need to feel uncertainty and stimulation and the unpredictable side of life. And it is interesting when people score kind of equally in uncertainty and certainty. A lot of times, when we peel back the layers, there's details in there that conflict between ways that they need to feel stable versus the completely risky side of life. So, a positive way to meet uncertainty is doing outside of your comfort zone that leads to your growth. Meeting different people, traveling, having different experiences. A negative way you could meet your need for uncertainty is picking a fight with a loved one. I see it all the time. Another one is substance addiction, drinking too much, doing drugs to escape and, escape your reality. That's a very common way that humans can meet their need for uncertainty. And then there's our human need for significance. Our greatest fear is that we're not enough. And our second greatest fear is that if we're not enough, we won't be loved. So significance, our need to feel needed, wanted, important, purposeful, respected. A positive way you can meet your need for significance, being an awesome leader, standing up for yourself and others, achieving a goal, mastering your field. A negative way would be telling negative stories about yourself, playing the victim, having the biggest problems, withholding love from a romantic partner because you want to punish them. All right. The next need is our need for growth. This is our need to constantly learn and expand ourselves. The saying is, once we stop growing, we're dying. Positive way you can meet growth is reading, learning, gaining education. A negative way is to grow to be the best criminal. It's a dramatic example, but it's true. And then the last need is contribution. This is our need to get out of ourselves, get out of our heads and give beyond ourselves, helping others, supporting others. Science says there are negative ways to get that need met. I don't like to talk about them. I like to keep contribution positive. So, okay, now I'm done monologuing you. Now I want you to get engaged with me. So I want you to think of something specific that you love to do. It's anything in life. It could be something in your work, something in your personal life. What's something that you love to do? It could be a person that you love spending time with. And if you're comfortable, I'd love to encourage you to put it in the chat box. See the chat box anymore. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Isn't this great to see this? I know it's late. I know everybody's tired, but come on. So the reason I asked you this is because I'm going to tell you at the end how you can take the test. Please remind me if I forgot. I don't think I put it on a slide. But to start the process for yourself, think about that thing that you love to do. And then based on the very limited knowledge that you might have based on my short explanation, what needs get met? So if we go back, can you identify one or more needs that you think you get met with that thing? And if you do, please put it in the box if you feel comfortable, in the chat box. Because chances are high that if you pick something that you truly love, that is truly important to you, the needs that get met in that likely may be towards the top of your list. Does that make sense? Awesome. That's great. I love that. Cool. So just so you know, you can, if to take the test, go to my name, Jennifer Blankl.com. And at the top, there's a tab that says learn your top 2 needs. And you can take the test, but don't do it right now, okay? It'll take about 20 minutes. It's 83 questions. So do it right after, because I want you to listen, okay? Sorry, I'm being a little sloppy about how I'm going through these slides. I didn't know a different way. Okay. I want to give you this great example. So can you see my slides? Awesome. So the number 1 relationship argument currently is about money. It fluctuates over stages of time, but right now it's definitely money. And the single best predictor of divorce right now is money. Okay. So, or money disputes, money conflicts. So as an example of the profound money fight, what is underneath the money fight? It's people's needs. We're not fighting about money. Money is the vehicle. It's the form through which we get our needs met, right? So when we can take a pause and see that, in this case, money is the vehicle through which we get our underlying human needs met, then we have a different conversation to be had, right? So for example, I'm working with a couple right now. He is a diehard serial entrepreneur. She has a stable job and she wants to buy a fancy couch. And he's like, Jen, why doesn't she understand? I've been working so hard. We only have so much in the bank, blah, blah, blah. So he was looking at it from an upset perspective of she's not understanding what our financial needs are, which could be true, which kind of was, but also helping him see the underlying needs, which sounds silly, but there's underlying needs at play for her wanting that couch. That couch had a lot to do with her comfort around entertaining. She has, her family is from out of town, but they come in frequently to town to visit. So it was part of her comfort around entertaining and having seating space. He was looking at it like, my wife just wants to spend money. She's looking at it from a comfort, connection. How do I keep our families of origin more comfortable with, our setup? So kind of off the top of my head example, but there's another example about how we humanly get stuck in arguments and fights. If we're lucky enough to be outwardly arguing and fighting, because we're not holding it in, but peeling back the layers and taking a look at what needs we are really striving after underneath changes the whole conflict. Okay. So I want you to take a quick look at this super busy, overwhelming chart. So this shows on the left side are 6 universal human needs that we've got to meet at some level every single day in order to survive. And then the other columns show both constructive, positive ways that are good for us, that make us feel great in meeting these needs. Also with the very human, destructive ways that we use to meet these same needs. And so I want to show this chart because I hope that something creates a little aha for you. I hope that something you see on here makes you think. Does anybody have any questions about this chart?
I do, Jennifer, and it's just more for clarity.
Yeah.
So like we can be constructive in each of these, or we can be destructive.
Right.
That's one reaction or the other.
And a whole gray area in between.
Okay. And then
absolutely. The whole, yeah.
Gary wants to know if we get these slides or if you keep these as proprietary.
I can totally give them to you. I'd be happy to share them. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. That was helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love, I love knowing the right column. The right column in my world as a relationship coach helps me help myself and other people that I get to serve to see the truth underneath, because the stuff on top is emotional. It's surface level trigger. And so when we can get insight into these needs and the fact that we've got all these wildly different, very human ways to meet them, we get a lot more empathy for ourselves and for other people. And then that in turn allows us to be able to even begin to take a pause in situations that are triggering and emotional and heated.
Jennifer,
so,
I'm not sure if you see it. We have a question for like some further clarity on the two sides of certainty. So I think like certainty and uncertainty seem like opposites, but they are two different drivers, is what it looks like. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. So certainty and uncertainty have a conflict, but I also want to say, so does love and connection, as well as significance. And I say that because I hope me answering the first question sheds light on the second point. So we have the human need to feel stability and consistency in our lives. That's where, the goodness from a routine comes from. Having a certain amount of money in the bank, however we define certainty and comfort, we've got to check that box to survive at a certain level. And then also in our neurological system, interestingly so, is the flip side opposite. It's almost like when we get too comfortable, when we get too certain, our neurological system says, oh, no, you don't. I need fun and action. I need uncertainty and variety. And it's intriguing how, we can hijack our ultimate result in what we're doing with these needs needing to play out I hope that makes sense. I love Gary's head nodding. It makes me feel like I'm making sense. I love that. Because we do need to get both those needs met. And when we're aware that, yeah, there's two needs, they are opposite, but we've got to get them met, we can play around with how we get them met, because now we're being conscious and aware of the fact that not only are the needs are there, but we've got to get them met. And also we're challenged, humanly so, because those are two opposing needs. Does that make sense? Does that help? So like, for example, I'm thinking of another client, he's a diehard engineer by day, makes a ton of money, is a great dad, but is a motorcyclist. So him and his wife fight every Friday, or they were, because he goes out with his buddies on Saturday morning. She thinks he's going to get in an accident. The whole world blows up every Friday night. So that's a perfect example of how he lives by certainty pretty much Monday through Friday. He's got all these things that he does that checks the box, high level of certainty. But then that very uncertain, that very high risky behavior, which very much contradicts everything else he does that is certain, which is what triggers his wife. But to help her understand those opposing behaviors and helping her understand why he even fights for his motorcycle riding on Saturday, even though she fully expresses her fear, helps them understand each other. I hope that makes sense. And then love and connection is a deep-rooted need, but that conflicts with our need for significance. So those of you that are in a love relationship or marriage, think about the times that you really want to love on your spouse or your person, but they've really made you mad. They've really done you wrong. And so you're trying to make a point and you want to make them pay. That is your need for significance overriding. That's just saying, like, darn it, I'm not gonna get taken advantage of. My boundaries are in place here, darn it. Okay, that's significance, humanly so, overriding love and connection, which has its place, which has its value. And if we're talking about the context of your love relationship, okay, maybe you got to choose love and connection more often. But other contexts, significance, it could be a better choice. That makes sense? Awesome. Okay.
Then Jennifer, are growth and contribution also kind of related the same way, or are they not paired the way that certainty and uncertainty are, and significance and connection and love are?
I love that you asked that, because I did fail to mention growth and contribution are the two spiritual needs that allow us the gateway to our deeper fulfillment and joy in life. Love and connection, significance, certainty, and uncertainty are our survival needs. We have to meet those in order to survive, even if we have to lie to ourselves, even if we have to falsely make ourselves believe that we're significant, that we're stable, that we're secure. But growth and contribution are the two spiritual needs that don't have to be met to survive, but they do have to be met to thrive. Great question. Great question. So with that, I want to teach you a strategy that I know you can easily put in your back pocket, no matter who you are. So now that you have been introduced to the fact that we universally have these 6 needs as humans that we've got to meet at some level to survive and or thrive, how do we press the pause button in our daily life in natural, normal situations that are going to continue to occur? So whenever something comes up, if you can pause and ask yourself, what am I needing here? What are they needing right now? You don't have to perfect the languaging of the needs. It's great if you do. In my opinion, I'd love to see you do that, but it's not necessary. because with this kind of effort, you'll get there. And so if you can just, as a starting point to get a taste of success, asking that question out loud is so powerful. Sorry about that, because can you guys hear that loud and clear? I'm so sorry.
And it doesn't bother me.
Okay, good. I'll be, because I don't know what to do about it right now. When you ask that question, it forces your brain into a whole different mode, and it forces the other person's brain into a different mode. The natural default is to be triggered, remain triggered, continue to get triggered, right? It takes massive effort and awareness to take that pause. But if you can, and you do, and you ask that question, you transform the entire scene in a split second. And if for some reason you're uncomfortable saying it out loud because you're in a context where it's not appropriate, it's weird, they can't hear you, ask it to yourself. Let the internal question guide your communication and response. It's cute, Kara. Only my dog barking annoys me. That's cute.
True. Well, I'm thinking of it from a context, because I think one of the things that you and I talked about when we were on the phone with Justin, a former worker, he and I got to the point where we were able to have that conversation with each other, which is super powerful in a professional setting where, like, I think I probably tend to take things personally. I think a lot of us do, but I do. Like, I'm love and connection. And when someone is upset, I'm like, why are you mad at me? But after talking with you, we like tried a lot harder to think like, okay, like, why am I acting like this? And so we would actually ask each other those questions like, hey, what's going on with you today? Is it something I've done, or is it not about me at all? And it was never about me. And like, and vice versa. And so like, that was really helpful. And we had a very close working relationship where we spent like 90% of our time working together. But I love that question. And we did get to a point where we could ask each other, what is it that's going on? So we didn't really frame it as like, what do you need right now? But we did always frame it as like, am I doing something that's upsetting you, or is it something else? And then it kind of gives the out of like, no, it's not you, which whether they then want to share or not in a professional setting is kind of nice. Because you're not then being like, tell me your entire personal life that may be happening behind the scenes that I don't know about. And so that worked really well for us from a work perspective to kind of get into that conflict. So it really was a gift to like be able to stop and pause and ask that. And I know that that's not everyone, but I felt like sharing a professional experience, giving you some time to get your dog stop barking.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to run down really quick and just give me 30 seconds.
I do find this very interesting. And I'm curious if anyone wants to unmute and thinks that they will take some of these strategies either back home or into their work world.
Cara, this is Juan Carlos. I find very interesting your comment about, well, you are in a conflict, maybe it's not you. But then in my experience, and it was a kind of deep learning that day, it was about me. It was when I just got married. And these adjustments when you start a new relationship, this case was marriage. And when my partner got upset with me, or I got upset with her, it was more about why am I really upset and why I am acting like this. Is really what she did that made me upset, or there is something else? And I start thinking about that for many more things. I don't know why. I just started when I got married. And I learned a lot about myself at the beginning of the relationship. And it was by asking this question.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I really love that. And, Kara, to your point, I find that 100% success, the format that you did it in, because it still breaks you out of that mode of it's personal to me. And you got there. And to me, that's do that. I mean, however you can get there. But the point is you did the actual trick. which is you ask the powerful question. There's this thing that is called our primary question. And I think that that's what Juan is really beautifully touching on, which is whatever question we're asking, that dictates our outcome. So depending on the quality of question we're asking. If it's a hijacking question, we're going to get a hijacking result. If it's a powerful, empowering question, we're going to open up our opportunity. So I love those shares, Kara and Juan. Thank you. Do you go by Juan Carlos or just Juan?
Juan Carlos, thank you for asking.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Juan Carlos. That's awesome. I love that. Very cool. Okay. Any other shares? Anybody else want to share something that you are thinking or feeling right now?
I'm a retired pastor and still a consultant, and you're square on, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm sensing that this will work just as well in the work world as it will in personal relationships, because people are people, even when they go inside corporate America's doors.
Absolutely. I use this 100% in my corporate clients. Absolutely.
I was going to quip, unless they're engineers or accountants. I'm sorry.
Oh, they're the first people that get it.
We have one son who's an engineer, the other is a psych major, and they're both wonderful people. So,
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, any questions or any questions? No questions? So I gave you the website and the tab at the top where you can go take the test. And I encourage you to, because it'll tell you your scores and it'll give you an interpretation of you based on your scores. As with any test, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it too wholeheartedly if something doesn't apply to you. But I do encourage you to get some ahas from taking the test and getting your results. And if you are wanting help in any kind of relationship in your personal life, I would absolutely love the opportunity to help you. I offer a free consultation. It's not a sales pitch in any way. That is a 30-minute coaching session so you can get a feel of me as your coach. And if you would like that, you don't have to apply. You can just go ahead and schedule your session using that URL. And I want to thank you guys so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I apologize if I was slightly choppy. These end of the day talks I've realized are hard on the brain, but I hope that my best served you and you took away some nuggets that you can not just learn right now, but execute. Taking action and putting these things into motion is truly where it's at for making long-term change. So I hope you got stuff out of what I said today.
Jennifer, we do have one more question that I really like and would love to close it out on, but how do you do this needs work with someone who isn't in tune with their own needs? And that is a really good question.
So, well, I feel like everybody I work with is not in tune with their needs. So is the question somebody that is in complete objection to learning about their needs, or because I can't honestly off the top of my head think of one client I've had that came to me that knew about these needs first. Is it somebody, but if the question is somebody that's resistant to growth, just the person that is set in their ways, they're like, I don't need to talk about my needs. I'm fine the way I am. If that's the question, I can answer that.
I don't want to speak for Charmaine, but I feel like that's probably a good question to answer too.
Yeah. My best advice, because I hear this pretty consistently, oh, so-and-so doesn't want to come do this work, but I want to resolve this problem with them. How do I get them to do such and such? Getting people to take tests or pointing out, you need to do this for your own advancement rarely works. I love the art of expressing your positive intent and getting somebody to do something. So if we're talking about the needs, I'm using an example that involves somebody that wants somebody to take the needs test. So instead of saying, we've got problems, I'm taking this test, why aren't you? Saying the positive good that you want to come out of it. Man, if I knew what your needs were, think about how I could help you. Think about the better partner, business partner that I would be. Think about the better spouse that I could be. I would love to learn about your needs. Okay, yes, I might be sounding a little corny and cheesy, but my point is highlighting the awesomeness that you want to create from getting somebody to do something will fare better than trying to convince somebody that's being a little bit stubborn, a little bit, I don't want to do this growth work to do it. So positive intent. I want to understand you on a deeper level. I want to connect with you better. I want to know what your needs are. Will you take this test? Here's my needs. What are yours? That might be too specific of an example to answer that question, but I hope I helped.
I love that. Another way to pose the question, how to move forward in conflict where the other person isn't able to communicate their needs, particularly in the moment.
Oh, got it.
Isn't around.
Got it. So I used to be a huge believer, because it actually used to be my slogan. It takes one person to transform any relationship. And then about 2 years ago, I stopped fully believing that. But the 80% of me, 80-20, the 80% of me that still believes that because I experience it every day in my seat, the power of being the one that shows up with these tools, with these insights, with these strategies, and sparking the change in the relationship dynamic. It's a longer road. Yes, it is not as quick or as easy, but if the other person's not involved, which is common, or they're not engaged or participating at the level you'd like, we have a lot of power to model, to evoke out of other people what we want from them. And it's largely how we show up for them, the questions we ask them, the tone and the calm and the energy that we use to express or convey or ask what we want. Does that make sense? I hope that helps.
I think so. And we're getting some gotta runs because we are right on time. I thought that was very helpful. Like, I wish that I could talk to a therapist every day, which would probably be really, really lucrative for someone. But I love all of these reminders. And I think people were engaged, and I love that too. So I just want to say we're very mindful of everyone's Zoombyism. I don't know if anyone learned that word over the weekend, but it's, turning into the Zoom zombie. So I want to thank Jennifer for her insightful presentation. Jennifer, if you send us the slides, we'll get them out in the follow-up survey. Thanks to you all for attending. I love having 17 engaged folks for most of it. Stay tuned for the next People Community event as we head into 2022, when we will hopefully, God knock on wood, do a happy joy dance, do whatever it is that you do for good luck. But please change your socks, where we can hopefully have 2 of these community events in person. If you know anyone who's interested in sponsoring this People Community, please send them in mine or Riley's direction. But in the interim, have a great and wonderful holiday season. Be joyful, and I hope everyone gets some time that is restorative, and we will see you back here next year, where at least the folks on this call will know their top 2 needs and can articulate them well. So look, New Year's resolution already done. All right, we'll see everybody back here in 2022. Have a great night.
Happy
Thanks
holidays.
you all. Thanks for dealing with my dog as well. Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Of course.